So there we were, you know, HIV and with six-packs on our bellies. And I think of a friend of mine, Michael, this morning, who I correspond with almost every day on email to make sure he hasn't committed suicide, who is gay and who has been humiliated in his life in every conceivable way, mainly by his family. And he is, in all kinds of ways, self-loathing, and he is grossly overweight and diabetic, and he sits in this room in Tennessee, the windows shut, the shades drawn, and watches porn. He calls porn my sugar. And I think to myself how hard it is sometimes to cross the desert to get to the promised land, and we should not assume that we are in an SUV, air-conditioned, driving toward Jerusalem at 65 miles an hour. Anyway, Jim and I, my partner, I don't know what to call him. If I call him my partner, he sounds like a lawyer. If I call him my lover, I call him my lover in rooms like this because it sounds like an old coward play. Jim and I were being driven by Mahdi, my Palestinian driver who drives me throughout the Middle East, who does Elvis Presley imitations. And we drive up to the American Colony Hotel, which used to be, in another century, a pasha's palace. And I have asked for one of the suites alongside the pool. The National Geographic is paying. Sting is in one of Sting, the rock singer, is in one of the suites, which even makes it more interesting. The suites were all organized for the pasha's various wives. He was not a Mormon, but he lived as a Mormon. So the various wives, the various days of the week had each their own suite. I wanted Tuesday. The hotel is Swiss-owned and Swiss-run now. But the Palestinian gentleman behind the desk was upset. He looked at Jim, my lover. He looked at me, and he said, "But there's only a single bed in the suite." And I said, thinking we were in Switzerland, "That's great," I said. Now, he says, I don't think you would be comfortable in one of the suites. And I said, well, what's the problem? He said, maybe we should bring in another bed. And then it dawned on me that we are in the Promised Land. And one must be careful in the Promised Land. And I said, how large was the bed? He said, it's a day bed. And I said, all right, bring in the day bed. And so two perspiring Palestinian gentlemen brought in the second bed, even while Sting was waking up, wondering what the noise was in the suite next door. Here we are on the 4th of July, this remarkable country of freedoms, celebrating the pursuit of life, liberty, and the most interesting one of all, of course, the pursuit of happiness, which is what we claim, the pursuit of our individual lives, the pursuit of our individual pleasure, the pursuit of our privacy, our liberty to be. These freedoms do not exist in many parts of the world, as you know. And we should be grateful for them here in this country. But I have come to talk today about the freedom to love, which is not exactly something that Thomas Jefferson wrote about. I believe, in fact, that freedom to love comes not to me because I'm an American, but because I'm a Christian. Because I belong to a room like this, my freedom to love. It is a God-given freedom. My dog loves Alpo. Americans, when I was learning English, the son of immigrant parents in this country, I learned that Americans love to use the word love. They love their garden. They don't love their children, but they love their cat. They love Saturday mornings. They love the Sunday New York Times. They love the heat. They love the cold. Love. It's the most troubling fact about our history, our American history, is how little we speak about love in our history. And who were those brown children playing by the woodpile at Monticello? Whose children were they? We give gold medals in history and Pulitzer Prizes to these historians who wear bow ties at Yale for writing biographies of Thomas Jefferson, and the pages accumulate and they do not tell us who Sally Hemings was. There is such silence about love. It is true that I write for the NewsHour, or I wrote for the NewsHour. I was recently fired from the NewsHour, and my decline at the NewsHour, I think, began one year when I wrote an essay raising the possibility that Abraham Lincoln was gay. I even mentioned the names of his possible lovers. I did not recite various of Abraham Lincoln's gay jokes, but the letters came flying in. Thou shalt not love. We hand our children history books that are all about hatred and violence and war and conflict. Here is our history, we say to our children. Generation after generation. We began with a Revolutionary War. The greatest war among us was the Civil War. There were slaughters as Indian killed settler and settler killed the Indians. There were labor riots in New York. There was World War I. Do you know the dates of World War I? There were race riots in Georgia and Harlem. Can you name the dates? There was World War II, Vietnam, Korea. That's our history. And nowhere in our history do we talk about how we came to be. When the first Italian starts dating the first Irish girl in New York, there is trouble aplenty. And no one from the Italian side wants to come to the wedding, and no one from the Irish side even wants to mention her name. Or we will talk her name, but we will mispronounce it. The reason why there is Long Island, the reason why there are suburbs, is to get away from grandmothers in America. We should be quite clear about that. I went to Sacred Heart School in Sacramento, California, which was a wonderful school. I was taught by the Sisters of Mercy, who were wonderful feminists in the 1950s and were true examples for me about what it means to be a strong woman. They ran orphanages and hospitals and schools, and they shoved the English language down my throat. You should always be suspicious of nationalities that claim to be sentimental, as the Irish are, always weeping over their sad songs. They are the least sentimental people, in fact.